After last week's absurd episode, I was fully expecting the rest of the season to be just okay, with some bangers here and there. What I didn't expect was the second episode being so good, akin to my favorite episode of the whole show, Fear No Mort. This is a breakdown and review of episode 2 of season 9 of Rick and Morty, Rick Days 7 Nights. We begin with Rick getting a flat tire after almost running over a deer. This shot right here is extremely important. I will touch more on it later, but just take note of Rick's expression here. It's serene and blissful, an expression we rarely see him have, especially when looking at something as simple as nature. I also like that the show frames it like a classic rural American road movie, especially when after fixing up his tire, he arrives at a bowling alley and seems to be very close with the people there. We see this not only through their conversations, but also through the photos of him supposedly being a bowling champion. Oh, and also,
best friends! We love you, Ted!
Ted?
What's he up to, man? What's he doing?
I also just want to call attention to this line.
Marjorie's keeping the place open late now?
Yeah, her mother passed a few months back. Don't think she wants to go home.
Everybody's running from something.
Yeah, not exactly subtle, but still a very important line for the conflict Rick is going through. Anyways, it turns out that Rick essentially pulled a severance. This episode honestly should have been called Rick Varence. I'll get more into this connection later. Essentially, Rick goes on vacation every year to some alien planet to de-stress. Somehow this planet in particular here is extremely similar to Earth. The thing is, however, he makes it so that a new consciousness takes over every time. In this case, Rick is now Ted, who has no recollection of his life as Rick, which is why he's terrified seeing himself with cybernetic implants. We also see the return of Hollow Rick, previously seen in Rick Die, Rick Pete, who explains the whole situation to Ted. He gives him two options, one to go back to being Rick with the red button, or erasing his memory of finding out he's not real, and go back to enjoying his vacation with the blue button. Clearly, this is a reference to Morpheus offering Neo the red and blue pill in Matrix. Ted here doesn't press any of the buttons, however, and instead sleeps with Marjorie, the lady who works at the bowling alley, and then crashes the van. It's funny, he really could have just wiped his memory, but he didn't, proving that actually Rick and Ted are far more similar than you might think. Oh, by the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, leave a like, and if you're new around here, subscribe. I'm making weekly Rick and Morty season 9 breakdowns, as well as large character analysis and lore recap videos. Subscribe so you don't miss out. That night, he's awoken by a blue light emitting from this egg spaceship, which reminds me a lot of the movie Freebirds. Goated movie, by the way, don't even try it. Morty then calls Ted from Rick's leg phone, such a stupid concept, and Morty essentially tells him to come home. Ted is obviously not about it, and this moment honestly reminded me just how much Morty has developed as a character. Remember back in season 2 when he tried to save that cosmic fart from being assassinated? He used to be a lot more compassionate toward others. Despite him killing the thing at the end, mostly because it was for the greater good, Morty in this episode just tells Ted that this is how things are. After all, it's way easier than dealing with the alternative. It's a small detail, but one I really liked. Anyway, Ted manages to destroy the egg ship, then tells his friends the situation. That's when, as a group, they build traps for when more of Rick's creations come for him. Unfortunately, in the chaos, Marjorie is killed, and that sets Ted off. With his friends, he creates a spaceship to go and confront Rick on Earth. It is here that we're shown the first glimpse that Ted carries some of Rick's intelligence, even though he's technically not him. Another detail that's important for later. Upon arriving, the garage tries to pull a Dr. Octavius on him and his friends, but then he meets Morty and his family. Despite Rick technically killing the woman he loved, Ted here doesn't want to hurt anyone in the family. I love how nonchalant the rest are, fully used to Rick's bullshit and just patiently waiting for it all to just stop. And then the episode takes an interesting turn. His friends all want cybernetic implants like Rick, and Ted gives it to them, but he's no longer his calm and blissful self. He's cold and slightly bitter now. Then we get this line.
I'm busy.
You're wearing his clothes now.
It has pockets. It's not a symbol.
Yeah, classic meta shot from the writers. Even a blind man can see that this is extremely on the nose, but it ultimately shows that Ted here is in denial. He's becoming more like Rick, whether he likes it or not. He then creates a portal for his friends to go back home.
So we won? We beat this guy?
Sure.
I also love that one annoying friend who keeps pestering Ted for cybernetic implants. It's so annoying, but I actually love him.
You giving me lasers when we get back home? Oh.
One of the friends then asks Ted if he should keep an eye on his old stuff, but Ted tells him to sell it and buy his wife something nice. We then see him drifting aimlessly in the pool, while the Bets seem concerned about him. Then we get this line.
He's still Ted, apparently.
There's a difference?
Yeah, now the episode's just not being subtle at all. We then see a montage of Ted drunkenly going to different alien planets, trying to feel something, but nothing's really working. So he then arrives back at his home. We briefly see a machine that automatically picks up fish, essentially ruining the social aspect of fishing that Ted's friends loved. And then he comes across them at the cemetery. He says he's gonna pour one out for Marjorie, but it turns out they're actually having a funeral for that one MF who kept wanting cybernetic implants.
Guess he had something in his eye.
I think this is supposed to imply that he tried to give himself laser eyes, but managed to run himself over with his other implants. 100% deserved, but he'll be missed. Ted then says,
It was
was just nice to vacation with dumb people.
You see, he's not even talking like Ted anymore. That's a Rick line if I've ever heard one. One of the friends then tries to attack him, but he freezes them in place. And then we get my favorite moment of the episode. That deer from the beginning looks back at him, only this time, Ted isn't smiling. He's dead-faced. I think this motif represents a few things. For one, typically deer are supposed to symbolize peace and guidance, but here, I think it represents Rick's inability to change and grow. The deer showing up again symbolizes that Rick's trauma, his heartache, and his self-loathing will always follow him, no matter how hard he tries to escape it via a vacation.
Everybody's running from something.
It'll always find you, Rick, no matter how far you run. Another important detail to this is how Rick here isn't smiling like he was before. Ted was once someone who appreciated nature for what it was. He wasn't upset that he got a flat tire, instead choosing to fix it with a smile. But here, nature no longer has a positive effect on him. He's numb. He unfreezes them before returning to the garage. In a drunken state, he tells Morty that he's throwing away everything from his life as Ted, especially the mementos that gave him real happiness. Morty tries to stop him, but ultimately nothing he says gets through. Ted then says he's gonna press the button to bring Rick back, believing that if he were just a little smarter, maybe he could find a way to truly be happy. Before he does this though, he asks Morty about Rick, and his grandson responds,
"Oh, you're really smart, really important. You have a great family and lots of friends. You're so happy, and we all really love you."
The way Morty lies to Ted about Rick being happy is heartbreaking, especially because of what happens next. Ted presses the button and nothing appears to change. Morty thinks it didn't work, but Rick quietly says,
No. It did.
It's an amazing, truly gut-wrenching ending to the episode. See, this is an episode that feels like it's been building ever since Rick Prime was killed. As we all know, Rick's entire purpose for living was to find and kill the person who erased his wife from infinity. And once that finally happened, he ironically lost the thing that had been holding him together. Sure, things came up here and there to distract him, but then, in the season 8 finale, Rick removed the only memory he had of Diane from his mind. And that wasn't even the end of it. He let Memory Rick and Memory Diane live together in an external mind, then sent them far away into the endless void of space. Rick might constantly deny it, but that decision clearly affects him. He even says outright how angry he is that Memory Rick gets to live with a version of his wife again, while his real self can't. And even though he claims he's gonna mind blow himself so he forgets the whole thing, I think this episode proves he didn't. Why? Because even after Ted tries to throw away his memories and forgets his life, Rick still isn't strong enough to erase the final thing connecting him to Diane, the memory of Memory Rick and Memory Diane living a happy life. I ultimately think the reason he even did this whole thing for Memory Rick was because it might bring him some, not a lot, but some comfort that a version of himself gets to be with his wife again. I also like to think his encounter with Evil Morty was the straw that broke the camel's back. You can tell Rick genuinely enjoyed taking him on, but once he beat him, what was left? As Rick says,
I need a vacation.
This episode is that vacation. Unfortunately, it isn't the vacation he was looking for. As I mentioned earlier, the episode feels very reminiscent of Severance. In that show, Adam Scott's character, Mark, takes a job at Lumen, a company that uses a process called severance. Essentially, they implant a chip in your brain that creates a separate consciousness. And when you go to work, that new consciousness takes over. And when you leave, you return to your original self. Of course, Severance explores a lot more than that, especially questions about grief, identity, and what makes someone real. But the main connection here is between Rick and Mark. The only reason Mark agrees to severance in the first place is because he lost his wife in a car crash. He believes that if you can forget that fact during the 9-to-5 workday every day, then maybe the grief and heartbreak will hurt a little less. But the thing is, it really doesn't. What Rick goes through here is almost the exact same thing. He's trying to run away from the harsh reality that his wife is gone, and no amount of alcohol or even love from his family can fill that void. That's what makes the ending so powerful. By the end, Ted and Rick become one, and it suggests that Rick will never truly find happiness through escape.
You think it's fun to be a god, Ted? You think God's nipples get hard when he murders a fish?
Sooner or later, one of these vacation selves would eventually discover the truth, do exactly what Ted does, only for the cycle to repeat until they become the same as Rick. I mean, the post-credit scene showcases that he does this constantly. The episode also shows just how destructive Rick really is. Even as Ted, he still manages to ruin the lives of the people he loves, and now their lives will never be the same. As I mentioned earlier, that's why I believe we see a scene of that machine collecting fish. Ted pretty much ruined the social aspect of fishing and is essentially the cherry on top for how his relationship with his friends becomes completely broken. We've seen time and time again just how lonely Rick is. I mean, after all
Hail His Majesty, the sad hottest piece of garbage in the entire cosmos.
His words, not mine. But here's my worry. As much as I loved this episode, I'm worried that the show is going to constantly repeat the same emotional arcs. And that's why I honestly hope the show ends sometime soon. This isn't a show like The Simpsons or Family Guy where everything can reset because it's mostly built around jokes and chaos. Rick and Morty has made it clear that growth and character development actually matter to its story, other than the fact that characters don't age. But all of that starts to feel pointless if there's no real conclusion waiting at the end. That's just how I feel. As much as I love this show, I really hope it doesn't lose itself. Overall, another banger episode of season 9. Now, it does have a lot of lines that are extremely on the nose, but other than that, a truly heartbreaking episode. I can't believe a lot of the fan base clocked out after the whole voice actor nonsense, because yeah, while I do believe this show faltered around season 4 to 5, the writers have constantly proved that they know ball and can still make some fantastic episodes. What did you guys think of this episode? Leave a comment down below. While you're there, subscribe if you're new around here. More breakdowns of season 9 coming weekly. If you want to support me further, please follow all my socials, join my Patreon, and consider grabbing my book The Shattered Absolution. And I want to thank you once again for watching.